One of the most common questions that I get from people is, how long should I expect it to take to overcome stuttering, to overcome blocking? And that's the question I want to open up today and talk about and walk you through so that you can get a deeper understanding of what the process actually looks like and what is the timetable, the approximate time that you should expect it to take to reach that place where you truly feel like you've climbed the mountain, so to speak. You've reached this place where your speech is no longer keeping you from being your best self, from living your best life. That's the whole point of this. I'm not talking about perfection or some cure or 100% fluency. That's not what I've reached, okay? I am not 100% fluent. As a former stutterer, I still have days where I struggle a bit. I'll have a block here, I'll have a block there. It still happens, but it no longer keeps me from the life I want to live. And that's where the power is. That is what you want, right? So to start this off, what I thought I would do is share a bit of my own journey and my own timetable. How long did it take me to overcome stuttering? Many of you probably have that question. And to start off answering that, let me say that it took me longer than it should have. And the reason it took me longer than it should have is because, so I was 19 when I first really started to do something about my speech. I kind of, as many of you can understand, I reached that breaking point. I was like, I am so sick of this. I want to overcome it. Let me figure out what the hell I need to do. And that led me to Google, doing some research, looking online for potential solutions. And what ended up happening is I stumbled across a speech coach online in much the same way that you probably stumbled across me here online. And that led me to get that person as a coach. I booked a few sessions and finally I had a bit of a plan, right? I had a structure. I talk about the importance of that all the time, of having a plan of some kind. But then what happened is that I started to have an on again, off again relationship with the plan. Now, let me remind you, I was 19 years old when this started. And so I did not have a lot of urgency. I had the most common 19-year-old problems of procrastination, laziness, not thinking deeply about what I was doing, not having the urgency, right? Just the most predictable behavior from a 19-year-old. And so what happened is I would work on it for a couple months, and this is how it started out when I was 19, when I first started. I would work on it for a couple months. I really started to see the results, right? There were some ups and downs as it goes for most people, but I started to see the results after about 2 or 3 months. But then things started to get a little better. And so I started to kind of chill out. I didn't keep pushing. And then what happened is, because those habits that I was trying to build, they were starting to have an effect, but they weren't becoming strong enough. And so I would kind of slack off because my life was now not quite as difficult. So I felt a bit more relaxed. I was like, okay, good. Now I don't need, and then I would kind of move on with my life. But then a few weeks later, the old stuttering habits would kind of start to creep back up again. And I would start to feel a bit of a regression. And this went on for a couple years. I would say 3 to 4 years, until I was about 23, 24 is when I really reached the point where I have not looked back. When I was about 24, I think, and I'm 27 now, and so this is only about 3 or 4 years ago, when I truly reached that point where I felt like I had finally truly elevated myself above, almost, I felt like I elevated myself above the ability to relapse. Now, this doesn't mean that I've reached some perfection or some, 100% fluency. No, I still have blocks. There are still days where it feels like I'm having a bad day. I'll have days where maybe my voice or my throat is a bit dehydrated, and that always makes it more difficult. Or I'll have days where it's almost like the musculature itself or the connections in my brain just, it's like they woke up that morning and they just wanted to be choppy. And some days I'll just find it difficult to find that flow, to get that smoothness going. But I truly have reached this place where I feel like there is no real danger of some epic relapse or some real collapse. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a very liberating thing. So, all of this to say, it took me a good 3 to 4 years to reach the level of fluency that I was looking for when I started at 19 years old. And as I said before, that's longer than it should have taken me. And for the reasons I also mentioned, there was a lack of urgency. I was 19 years old. I'll plead that, right? And so I kept having this on again, off again relationship with the plan and the daily routine and putting in the work. I would do it for a couple months, and then I would stop, and then I would come back after things would start to get worse again. And that's just how it goes sometimes. But now let me bring this back to, or let's do a pivot toward, okay, what should you expect? That's just my story. Everybody has a different story. What should you expect from your own timetable? How long should you expect it to take you to achieve a level of transformation with your speech? Well, let me explain it this way. There are 3 times, let's say, or three blocks of time that I think are very useful for us to use as sort of vague lines in the sand. And that is the 3-month mark, the 6-month mark, and the 1-year mark. So you could think of these as 3 levels that you are trying to reach a certain level of excellence and mastery as you work your way up here. So the 3-month mark is an important number because there's something with the brain where it takes about 3 months to change a complex habit like your speech that's probably been around for years and decades. It'll take some time. You're probably not going to do this in a week or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. It's going to take multiple months. And 3 months is often where you start to see finally, all of that time of you pushing the boulder up the hill, you finally start to reach the crest of that first hill. It's usually around the 3-month mark of really diligent and consistent effort. You're not going to see that after 3 months if it's kind of hit and miss with your daily routine. No, I'm talking about really urgent, really committed, putting in the work, doing a daily routine, whether that's my free Stop Stuttering workshop, one of my programs, one-on-one coaching, somebody else's program, whatever it is, you need to be really committed. You need to really want it and really discipline yourself with putting in that work. But so long as that is in place, it's usually around the 3-month mark where you start to feel that first wave of, oh my God, I spoke fluently and I didn't even realize I was doing it until after, and this has happened to me in the past. I would go like a week where I wouldn't really think about my speech. And then I would look back and like, wait a minute, I hardly thought about my speech at all in the last week and I barely stuttered, right? That is what's happening there is things are becoming more automatic. Those connections that you are making, they're starting to move into your unconscious. And that is where the growth that you experience, that's usually the period where it escalates, it speeds up when the skills you're learning and fluency starts to become more of an automatic process. So that's the 3-month mark, right? Now, that doesn't mean after 3 months, there's still the potential for relapse if you just stop working on it. So what you want to do is you want to stretch it out. And so I would say from 3 months up to 12 months, that is the time period. That's the critical time period of really solidifying and making your fluency as deadly strong as possible. And so this is the time period where you want to achieve as much mastery as possible with your speech, not only with overcoming stuttering, but also just being the best speaker possible. Because all of that is going to safeguard you against any potential relapses. And so what you don't want to do is work really hard for 3 months and then completely stop. Instead, what you want to do is work really hard for 3 months, maybe adjust, maybe reduce the time spent, sure, maybe taper it off to where you can ease off the gas pedal a little bit, and but you want to keep growing. You want to keep making those habits stronger. And this will look different depending on the person, but those weeks and months after the initial 3 months, that is where most people go wrong. That's where I went wrong. That's why it took me 3 to 4 years instead of 3 to 6 months, is because after 2 to 3 months, I was like, oh, I feel better. It's not so bad anymore. And then I would slack off, right? And so what you are doing when you continue working on your plan, on the daily routine, is that you strengthen it. You start to make this new habit, this new skill set of fluent speech. You make it an unstoppable force. You make it so strong, so powerful that any relapse that tries to happen is just far too weak to compete against this new powerful sheriff in town, if you will. So to recap, 3 months at least is what most people need to really, really work diligently, work really hard, doing some kind of daily routine. And again, my Stop Stuttering workshop is a great place to get this started. Link is in the description. So that's the 3 months. And then you do want to go beyond that. You want to go to about 6 months of maybe between months 3 and 6. You might not have to work as hard as the first 3, but you're still putting in that effort consistently. And then if you really want maximum mastery of your speech, if you want to be a master of communicating well, of being able to project your best self and elevate your speech skills to help you in your career, your relationships, your social life, your dating life, all of these areas of your life that you can envision being benefited by fluent speech, that is really what happens if you commit yourself beyond even 6 months and you reach for mastery. That's what I want. That's always what I encourage people is don't just settle for not stuttering as much. Go for as high as you can take it. Go as far as you can take it. Be a master of communication. Become as articulate as you can possibly become. Because when you do that, you just set yourself up to live a better life, to have a more fulfilling life, to actually become the best version of you, to go do the things you want to do. And this, of course, has many downstream effects or potential effects of making more money in your career and therefore having more flexibility to perhaps travel more or go do the things you want to do or switch careers into a lane that you actually want to be in. Whatever it is, you open up your options. You don't feel so constricted when you become a master of communication. Okay, so if you want to dive deeper, again, I know I've already mentioned it a couple times, so I won't spend a bunch of time on it, but go watch my free Stop Stuttering workshop if you want to dive deeper into this stuff. If you like this video and you want to take it to the next step, this gives you everything you need from a daily routine. 45+ minute video workshop walks you through everything you need to get started on your journey. And if you truly follow it, you could see 90% fluency in as little as 6 weeks. Okay, so go check it out. I will see you over there. The link is in the description below. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.